I'm Madeline Mitchell, 27, and I never imagined that answering my doorbell at 5 a.m. would change my life forever. There stood my sister Emma, her mascara-streaked face illuminated by my porch light, holding her sleeping 6-month-old daughter Lily. Mom and Dad are moving to Barcelona tomorrow. They've already sold the house. I need to follow my boyfriend to London. Please take Lily for just 3 months. 3 months became 6, then a year. The day I received adoption papers was the same day my parents announced they were moving back. Now I face an impossible choice. If you've ever had your family betray your trust, you know that pit in your stomach I felt that morning. Before I dive deeper into how my entire family abandoned me with a baby, only to try reclaiming her when convenient, I'd love to know where you're watching from. Drop your location in the comments and hit subscribe if family drama stories like mine help you feel less alone in your own struggles. Now, let me take you back to before my doorbell rang and everything changed. Before Lily came into my life, I was a fairly successful graphic designer working from home in my comfortable 2-bedroom condo in Boston. I'd purchased it with money I'd saved from 5 years of consistent freelance work with some major clients in the publishing industry. I had just broken up with my boyfriend of 3 years, Kevin, after realizing we wanted different things. He was pushing for marriage and kids right away, while I wanted to focus on growing my business first. The irony of that decision wasn't lost on me later. My sister Emma is 5 years younger than me, just 22 at the time, and had always been what my parents affectionately called the free spirit of the family. What they meant was that Emma made impulsive decisions, dropped out of college twice, and generally lived like consequences were optional. Still, everyone loved her vivacious personality and zest for life. When she got pregnant after a 3-month relationship with Jake, a bassist in a local band, my parents were disappointed, but not surprised. They immediately stepped in with financial support, helping her move back into their house and setting up a nursery for the baby. That was our family dynamic in a nutshell. Emma created chaos, my parents rescued her, and I was expected to be the steady, responsible daughter who had her life together. This pattern had been established since we were children. I was given adult responsibilities early, managing my own homework, chores, and even cooking family meals by age 12. Meanwhile, Emma was sheltered, coddled, and forgiven for every mistake because she was sensitive and needed extra support. I loved my sister despite our differences. We'd grown closer when Lily was born, with me visiting every weekend to help out and give Emma breaks. I genuinely enjoyed being Aunt Maddie and watching my niece grow. What I didn't know during those peaceful weekend visits was that my parents were facing serious financial problems. Apparently, my father's investment firm had taken significant losses, and they'd been keeping it quiet from everyone. The night before Emma showed up at my door, I had been working late finalizing designs for a new client that could potentially double my income if they signed a long-term contract. I'd also been texting with David, a guy I'd met through a mutual friend, about our upcoming first date that weekend. My life was on an upward trajectory, professionally and personally. I went to bed excited about the possibilities ahead, completely unaware that by morning, everything would change. The doorbell rang at exactly 5:07 a.m. I remember checking the time on my phone and assuming it was a package delivery person at the wrong address. When I looked through the peephole and saw Emma holding Lily, my first thought was that something terrible had happened at my parents' house. I swung the door open to find Emma looking both exhausted and manic, her eyes red-rimmed with dark circles beneath them. Lily was bundled in her pink blanket, miraculously asleep despite the early hour and whatever chaos had preceded their arrival. "Emma, what's wrong? Is everyone okay?" I asked, immediately reaching for Lily to ease the weight from my sister's arms. "I need a huge favor, Maddie," Emma said, stepping into my apartment without waiting for an invitation. She handed over Lily along with a diaper bag stuffed to bursting. "Mom and Dad are moving to Barcelona. They sold the house. The new owners take possession tomorrow." "What? That's impossible. They would have told me," I said, adjusting Lily in my arms as she stirred slightly. "They decided fast. Dad got some opportunity there. They've been planning it for weeks, but didn't want anyone to know until it was certain." Emma was pacing now, checking her phone repeatedly, "and Jake's band got signed. He's already in London, and he wants me to come. It's my chance, Maddie. My only chance to be with him and make things work. The reality of what she was saying began to sink in. Wait, you're leaving too? What about Lily? Emma's eyes finally met mine, pleading. I need you to take her. Just for 3 months until we get settled. Jake's label is setting us up with an apartment. And once we're stable, I'll send for her. Mom and Dad would take her. But they've already shipped most of their stuff, and they're staying in a tiny temporary apartment in Barcelona until they find something permanent. Emma, I can't just take a baby. I have work. I have clients. I have... Please, Maddie, Emma interrupted, tears streaming down her face now. You're the only one I trust. You've always been so good with her. I've seen how you are together. She loves you. Have you thought this through? What about formula, diapers, her doctor, her schedule? My mind was racing through the practical implications, while my heart was still trying to process the bombshell. It's all in here, Emma said, patting the diaper bag. Her formula, clothes, favorite toys, and I wrote down her schedule and the pediatrician's number. I'll call you every day, I promise. And I'll send money when I can. Before I could formulate any more objections, Emma was backing toward the door. My flight leaves in 4 hours. I have to go. I love you, Maddie. Thank you for this. I'll call tonight to check in. She bent to kiss Lily's forehead, and I saw tears drop onto the sleeping baby's face. Be good for Aunt Maddie, my sweet girl. Mommy will see you soon. And just like that, she was gone, leaving me standing in my entryway, holding my niece, who had no idea her entire world had just changed. The full reality of what had happened didn't hit me until later that morning when I tried calling my parents. Their phones went straight to voicemail. I left increasingly urgent messages throughout the day, but received only a brief text from my mother around noon. In flight to Barcelona. Emma explained situation. Thank you for helping. We'll call when settled. That was it. No explanation, no apology, no acknowledgement of the massive imposition they'd collectively dumped on me. By evening, Lily and I were both in tears from confusion and disrupted routine, me from sheer overwhelm and abandonment. The next day, I received a call from a realtor asking if I wanted to schedule a time to pick up any remaining belongings from my parents' house before the new owners took possession. That was how I learned they had sold our family home of 20 years. The house where all my childhood memories lived would belong to strangers by the end of the week. I managed to arrange emergency time off from my biggest client project, explaining that I had a family crisis. With Lily strapped into her car seat, which Emma had thankfully left, I drove to my parents' house and found it nearly empty. There were a few boxes labeled "For Maddie" in the garage, containing old photo albums and a few sentimental items they thought to save for me. In the nursery, much of Lily's furniture remained, apparently deemed too bulky to ship overseas or store. I spent the afternoon loading my SUV with as many baby supplies as I could fit, trying to ignore the hollow feeling in my chest each time I passed the blank spaces on walls where family photos had hung just weeks earlier. Emma's calls, promised to be daily, became sporadic within the first week. When she did call, the conversations were brief and centered around her exciting new life in London. Jake's band was rehearsing for their first European tour. They were meeting music executives. The apartment was small but in a trendy neighborhood. Each call contained vague assurances that she'd send for Lily soon, but never any concrete plans or timelines. Meanwhile, my life had descended into chaos. I knew nothing about caring for an infant. The schedule Emma had scribbled was already outdated. Lily seemed to be in a growth spurt and wanted to eat constantly. I was averaging 3 hours of sleep a night, trying to meet work deadlines during her brief naps, and struggling to figure out the most basic baby care tasks. The breaking point came during the first week when I realized Lily had a fever. The thermometer read 101.2 degrees Fahrenheit, and I panicked. The pediatrician's office Emma had listed wouldn't see Lily without proper guardianship documentation, which I didn't have. I ended up in the emergency room at 2 a.m., sobbing to a kind nurse that I didn't know what to do, that this baby had been left with me with no warning, and that I was terrified of making a mistake that would harm her. The ER doctor diagnosed an ear infection, prescribed antibiotics, and gave me a sympathetic look that made me cry harder. "You're doing fine," she assured me. "Babies get ear infections. It's not because you did anything wrong." Those words of reassurance from a stranger were the first kindness I'd received since this ordeal began, and they broke something open in me. I cried the entire way home, Lily finally sleeping peacefully in her car seat after receiving medication. My neighbors, Rachel and Tom Johnson, became unexpected lifelines during those early weeks. Rachel was a mother of 3 who noticed me looking increasingly haggard as I struggled to bring in groceries while balancing Lily on my hip. She offered advice, occasional babysitting, and most importantly, adult conversation when I was desperate for it. It was Rachel who suggested I join a local parents group for support. It was Tom who helped me rearrange my spare bedroom, divided by office, into a makeshift nursery, moving my desk into a corner of the living room. Without their help, I'm not sure how I would have survived those first chaotic weeks. At Lily's first pediatrician visit with a new doctor, who agreed to see her after I explained the situation, we discovered she had a milk protein allergy that required special formula. This explained her frequent crying and digestive issues, which I'd attributed to the stress of being separated from her mother. The specialized formula cost 3 times what regular formula did, straining my budget even further. When I finally managed to get my mother on a video call 3 weeks after they'd left, she and my father were sitting at a cafe in Barcelona, looking tanned and relaxed. They spoke enthusiastically about their Spanish classes and the charming apartment they'd found. When I tried to discuss the financial strain and practical difficulties of suddenly caring for Lily, they brushed off my concerns. "It's only for a few months, Madeline," my father said. "Emma will get settled and take her back before you know it. You've always been so capable. We knew you could handle it." The unspoken truth hung in the air. They had chosen freedom and adventure over responsibility to their granddaughter. They had enabled Emma's abandonment of her child. And they had volunteered me for the job without even asking. As the 3-month mark approached the timeline Emma had originally promised, I received a text rather than a call. "Things are complicated right now. Jake's tour got extended. Can you keep Lily a bit longer? Maybe another 3 months? Love you both so much." I stared at the message for a long time before responding with a simple yes. What choice did I have? I couldn't abandon Lily the way her mother and grandparents had. Despite my initial resentment and struggle, something else had begun to happen. I was falling in love with my niece. Her first smile directed at me, her little hands reaching for my face, the way she settled instantly when I held her, a bond was forming that I hadn't anticipated or planned for. I found myself wondering, as I rocked her to sleep at night, how anyone could walk away from this child. And I began to fear the day I might have to give her back. By the 6-month mark, Lily and I had settled into a functional routine. I'd restructured my entire life around her needs, waking early to work while she slept, utilizing her nap times for client calls, and continuing after her bedtime. My home office had been completely transformed into Lily's nursery, painted a soft yellow with white curtains and filled with toys, books, and the crib I'd purchased when it became clear this arrangement wasn't ending anytime soon. Mrs. Jenkins, my 8-year-old neighbor from across the hall, had become Lily's regular babysitter for the hours when I absolutely needed uninterrupted work time. A retired kindergarten teacher with grandchildren in another state, she seemed grateful for the company and the opportunity to dote on a baby. Lily adored her, which eased my guilt about working when I should be with her. Communications from my family had become predictably sparse. My parents called every few weeks. Their conversations focused primarily on their Spanish adventures, Dad's consulting work with a local business, Mom's cooking classes, their weekend trips to coastal towns. They asked about Lily as an afterthought, never acknowledging the indefinite nature of what was supposed to be a temporary situation. Emma's communications evolved from just 1 more month to increasingly vague timelines. "Jake and I are going through some stuff right now," or "the band's manager says we need to focus on the European market before thinking about returning to the States." She'd send occasional gifts for Lily designer baby clothes that were usually the wrong size for the season, toys more appropriate for a toddler than an infant. In one particularly frustrating video call, Emma admitted she'd gotten a small tattoo of Lily's birth date, but in the same conversation confessed she couldn't remember if Lily was allergic to regular formula or if she'd started solid foods yet. The disconnect was staggering. She was maintaining the identity of motherhood while abandoning all its responsibilities. Despite my determination to remain emotionally detached to remember, I was just the temporary caretaker. My heart had other plans. I was there when Lily pulled herself up to standing for the first time, clutching the coffee table and grinning with pride. I was the one who captured her first tentative steps on video. I was the one she reached for when she was tired or hurt or scared. Her first word was "Mama," spoken while looking directly at me. I corrected her gently. "No, sweetheart, I'm Auntie Maddie." But the word had already lodged in my heart like a splinter, painful and impossible to remove. My social circle transformed completely during this time. Friends without children, the ones I'd spent years building relationships with, gradually drifted away when I couldn't join their impromptu happy hours or weekend getaways. The promised coffee dates, and "we'll come to you instead," movie nights became less frequent until they stopped altogether. In their place came a new support network of parents. I met through Mommy and Me swim classes, playground visits, and local family events. These women didn't care that I was technically an aunt rather than a mother. They cared that I knew the unique torture of trying to grocery shop with a teething baby, or the triumph of getting a full night's sleep after weeks of midnight wakings. Sarah, a single mom with a daughter just a few months older than Lily, became a particular ally. We traded babysitting to give each other rare evenings off, and texted at all hours about everything from diaper rash remedies to our shared Netflix obsessions. David, the man I'd been about to have a first date with when Lily arrived, had been understanding about the cancellation but ultimately wasn't interested in dating someone with a baby. The one attempt I'd made at dating a coffee meeting with a man from a dating app who claimed to love kids ended when he suggested that the baby could stay with her real mom whenever we wanted to go out. Work had to adapt as well. I'd been forced to turn down the major client that could have expanded my business, explaining that my family situation had changed drastically. Fortunately, my existing clients were mostly understanding of my new circumstances, especially after I proved I could still deliver quality work, albeit with modified deadlines. By Lily's first birthday, it was clear to everyone but my family that this temporary situation had become permanent. I planned a small celebration with the parent friends we'd made, a colorful cake, and decorations featuring Lily's favorite cartoon characters. I sent invitations to my parents and Emma, not expecting them to actually attend but feeling they should be given the option. My parents sent a generous gift card, and my mother made a brief video call during the party, cooing over how big Lily had grown and promising they'd visit soon. Emma sent a text the day after. "Happy birthday to my beautiful girl. Sorry I couldn't call. Crazy schedule right now." As I tucked Lily into bed that night, surrounded by her new toys and wearing the pajamas Sarah had given her, she looked up at me with heavy eyelids and said clearly, "Night-night, Mama." This time, I didn't correct her. I kissed her forehead and whispered, "Night-night, my sweet girl." Something had shifted. In my heart, if not legally, she had become my daughter, and I would do whatever it took to give her the stability and love she deserved, even if that meant accepting that my life had permanently changed course. As Lily approached 18 months old, the lack of legal standing in her life became increasingly problematic. I couldn't enroll her in the preschool program I'd found without guardianship documentation. I couldn't authorize certain medical procedures. I couldn't even get her a library card without jumping through complicated hoops. After a particularly frightening incident where Lily developed a high fever and seizure symptoms in the middle of the night, and the emergency room questioned my authority to consent to treatment, I knew something had to change. The doctor had eventually treated her under emergency circumstances, but made it clear that I needed proper legal documentation going forward. The next morning, still shaken from the hospital experience, I contacted a family lawyer recommended by another mom in our playgroup. Jennifer Lawson specialized in non-traditional family arrangements and grandparent divided by kinship caregiver rights. "Without legal guardianship, you're in a precarious position," she explained during our consultation. You're doing all the work of a parent with none of the legal protections or authority. If your sister decided tomorrow that she wanted Lily back, you would have very little recourse, despite having been her primary caregiver for over a year. The thought of Emma suddenly reclaiming Lily sent ice through my veins. Not because I didn't want my sister to have a relationship with her daughter, but because Lily now viewed me as her mother. An abrupt separation would be traumatic for her. What are my options? I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. We need to establish legal temporary guardianship at minimum, Jennifer said. That would give you the authority to make medical and educational decisions. For that, we need your sister's cooperation. Tracking down Emma proved more challenging than I expected. Her phone went straight to voicemail repeatedly. My parents claimed not to know her current address, saying only that she and Jake had moved to a different part of London after some band issues. Finally, through some strategic social media stalking, I found recent photos of Emma tagged at a music venue in East London. Our eventual video call was tense from the start. Emma looked different, thinner, with dyed black hair and new tattoos visible on her collarbone. The carefree excitement of her early London days had been replaced by a defensive edge. "I'm not signing away my rights to my daughter," she snapped after I explained the guardianship paperwork. "This isn't about signing away rights," I said carefully. "It's about making sure Lily can get medical care and eventually go to school. It's temporary guardianship, not adoption." "Whatever. It feels like you're trying to steal her," Emma said, but the accusation lacked conviction, as if she were playing a role she thought she should play. "Emma, you haven't seen her in over a year. She's walking and talking now. She has favorite foods and books and toys. Do you even know any of those things?" The words came out sharper than I intended. Emma's face crumpled momentarily before she regained her composure. "That's not fair. You know our situation has been complicated." "What exactly is the situation, Emma? Because from where I'm sitting, it looks like you abandoned your baby with me indefinitely while you live a responsibility-free life in London." The conversation devolved from there, with Emma alternating between defensiveness and tearful apologies. Finally, after I sent her photos of Lily's recent hospital visit, she reluctantly agreed to sign the temporary guardianship papers. "But just for a year," she insisted. "By then we'll have things figured out." I didn't believe her, but I accepted the concession. Jennifer prepared the paperwork, Emma signed electronically, and within weeks, I had legal authority to make decisions for Lily. With that immediate crisis resolved, I finally had emotional space to process the deeper impact of the past year. At my friend Sarah's suggestion, I started seeing a therapist specializing in family trauma and unexpected caregiving. Dr. Matthews helped me work through the complex emotions, the anger at my family's abandonment, the grief for my previous life and plans, the guilt over sometimes resenting the responsibility, and the fierce love I felt for Lily that sometimes scared me with its intensity. "What you're experiencing is common among kinship caregivers," Dr. Matthews explained. "You're grieving the life you expected to have while simultaneously building a new one, and you're doing it without the preparation or support most parents have." She recommended a support group for kinship caregivers, grandparents, aunts, uncles, and other relatives who had unexpectedly become primary parents to children in their family. The first meeting I attended, I cried through most of my introduction, finally surrounded by people who truly understood my situation. There was Marjorie, raising her 3 grandchildren after her daughter's incarceration. There was Paul, whose brother's death had left him suddenly, parenting his teenage nephew. There was Kira, whose situation most closely mirrored mine, caring for her sister's toddler after postpartum depression led to substance abuse issues. These people understood the financial strain of suddenly adding a child to your household. They understood the complex emotions of loving a child who wasn't supposed to be yours to raise. They understood the complicated family dynamics that led to these situations and the resentment that sometimes bubbled up despite best intentions. Through therapy and the support group, I began to accept that my relationship with my family might never be what I'd once hoped for. My parents had enabled Emma's abandonment of Lily, and then abandoned both of us themselves. Their occasional video calls and empty promises revealed their priorities clearly. Meanwhile, the financial strain had reached a critical point. I'd depleted most of my savings covering the increased expenses of raising Lily, while simultaneously having less time available for work. After consulting with Jennifer again, I filed for child support from Emma, a move my parents deemed unnecessarily aggressive during one of our rare calls. "She's trying to build a life for herself," my mother argued. "If you push her too hard, she might just take Lily back out of spite." The threat hung in the air between us. We both knew Emma wasn't prepared to parent Lily, but my mother was suggesting she might reclaim her daughter just to punish me for seeking financial support. It was a glimpse into a family dynamic more dysfunctional than I'd been willing to acknowledge. The child support petition went unanswered. Emma stopped taking my calls entirely for several months. My parents' communication became even more sporadic. But while my biological family was pulling away, Lily and I were growing closer. She had developed separation anxiety, clinging to me tearfully whenever I tried to leave her with Mrs. Jenkins or at the childcare center during support group meetings. The pediatrician assured me this was normal for her age, but I couldn't help feeling it reflected her fear of being abandoned again. One night, after finally getting Lily to sleep, after an hour of rocking and singing, I sat in the darkened nursery and admitted to myself what I'd been feeling for months. I didn't want this arrangement to be temporary. I didn't want Emma to figure things out and take Lily back to London or Barcelona or wherever she might be by then. I wanted to be Lily's mother legally, permanently, officially. The realization was terrifying. It meant potentially severing my relationship with my sister completely. It meant acknowledging that the family I thought I had was a fiction. But as I watched Lily sleeping peacefully, her small chest rising and falling, her tiny hand clutching the stuffed bunny I'd bought her, I knew I would fight for her if necessary. If you've ever reached that moment where you know your life has permanently changed course, you understand exactly what I felt that night. I want to thank everyone who stayed with me through this part of my journey. Your comments and support mean the world to me. If my story has resonated with you so far, please take a moment to hit that like button. In the next part, I'll share how I started building a new life and family structure for Lily and me, one that would soon be threatened in ways I never imagined. With the temporary guardianship papers in hand and a new determination to create stability for Lily, I made several major life changes. First, I started searching for a larger apartment. My condo had served us well enough in emergency mode, but Lily needed a real bedroom, not a converted office, and we both needed more space as she became more active. After weeks of searching, I found a 3-bedroom apartment in a family-friendly neighborhood with good schools. The rent stretched my budget to its limit, but the extra bedroom, outdoor play area, and proximity to parks made it worth the financial sacrifice. Moving day was chaotic but cathartic, a physical manifestation of our transition from temporary arrangement to permanent family unit. I also restructured my work life completely. Instead of trying to maintain my previous client load with reduced hours, I pivoted to fewer, higher-paying projects that allowed more flexibility. I specialized in children's book illustration and educational materials, finding that this niche not only paid well, but aligned with my new life as Lily's caregiver. I could research children's content with her, testing concepts and designs with my built-in focus group of one. Establishing consistent routines brought a sense of security to our lives. Mondays were library story time. Tuesdays were playground mornings, weather permitting. Wednesdays were music class. Thursdays were for playdates with Sarah's daughter and other friends from our various activities. Weekends were for special outings, children's museums, the aquarium, or just long walks in the public gardens. This predictability seemed to help Lily thrive. Her language exploded, with new words appearing daily. Her separation anxiety gradually eased as she internalized the truth that I would always come back for her. She became more confident, exploring playgrounds, more social with other children, more willing to try new foods and activities. Finding quality, affordable childcare was perhaps the biggest challenge. After researching what felt like every option in Boston, I discovered a daycare center with income-based tuition assistance just 10 minutes from our new apartment. The diverse group of children, experienced teachers, and play-based curriculum impressed me immediately, and Lily adjusted to the half-day program within weeks. It was during daycare pickup one rainy Tuesday that I met Ryan Sullivan. I noticed him first because his son Max was sharing a picture book with Lily in the reading corner, both of them giggling over something on the page. Ryan was attempting to juggle an umbrella, his laptop bag, and Max's backpack while signing the pickup sheet. "Here, let me hold that," I offered, taking the umbrella before it could topple over. "Thanks," he said with a grateful smile. "I'm still figuring out the logistics of this single dad thing." Over the next few weeks, we kept running into each other at pickups and drop-offs. I learned that Ryan was a widower. His wife had died from complications during Max's birth 2.5 years earlier. He worked as an architectural designer, mostly from home, and was raising Max with help from his mother who lived nearby. Our friendship developed naturally and cautiously. We started arranging playdates for the kids, meeting at neutral locations like the Children's Museum or playground. Lily and Max got along beautifully, with Max taking on the proud role of showing the baby how to do things, and Lily following him adoringly. As we navigated the challenges of single parenting together, sharing advice and occasional meals, I found myself drawn to Ryan's quiet strength and genuine kindness. He never pressed for details about Lily's parentage, accepting my simplified explanation that her mother couldn't care for her. "Family is who shows up," he told me once. "Max will never remember his biological mom, but he'll grow up knowing he was loved and wanted. That's what matters." Meanwhile, Lily's medical issues required more specialized care than I'd initially realized. The milk protein allergy had evolved into multiple food sensitivities that necessitated visits to a pediatric gastroenterologist. We also discovered she had mild asthma after a frightening episode during a fall cold. Each new diagnosis brought more appointments, more medications, more expenses, and more paperwork to navigate with my temporary guardianship documentation. Through it all, I kept meticulous records of Lily's life and development. Photo albums, milestone journals, art projects, medical records, everything organized chronologically, in case Emma ever decided she wanted to know what she'd missed. I told myself this was for Lily's sake, so she would have a complete history of her early years, but part of me also wanted evidence of who had really been her mother during these formative times. Christmas arrived, marking nearly 18 months since Lily had come into my care. I decorated our apartment with lights and a small tree, bought too many presents, and planned special traditions I hoped would become annual events. Ryan and Max joined us for Christmas Eve dinner, bringing homemade cookies and a hand-knit scarf from Ryan's mother. As the children played with their new toys and Ryan helped me wash dishes, I felt a contentment I hadn't expected to find in this unexpected life. It wasn't the future I'd planned, but it was becoming a future I valued deeply. The holiday also brought rare communication from my family. My parents sent Lily extravagant gifts from Spain, designer clothes and toys far too advanced for her age, along with a brief video call where they commented repeatedly on how much she'd grown but asked no substantive questions about her life. Emma sent a text message with a photo of herself in front of a London Christmas tree, writing only, "Merry Christmas to my girls. Miss you both." No call, no questions about Lily's Christmas experience, no acknowledgement of the reality of our lives. These hollow gestures reinforced my growing conviction that I needed to secure Lily's future more permanently. After the holidays, I contacted Jennifer again to discuss adoption possibilities. "It's a complicated situation," she advised. "Since you have your sister's consent for temporary guardianship, we have a foundation to work from. But adoption is permanent. It would terminate Emma's parental rights completely." "I understand that," I said, my voice steady. "But Lily needs permanence. She deserves to know her home is secure. And legally, I need to be able to make long-term decisions for her education, medical care, and future." Jennifer agreed to draft a letter to Emma requesting consent for adoption, explaining the legal implications, while emphasizing that open adoption arrangements could allow her to maintain a relationship with Lily while giving me legal parental rights. As we worked on the adoption strategy, My cautious friendship with Ryan slowly deepened into something more. Our first real date happened almost by accident. His mother offered to watch both children one Saturday evening so we could attend a charity event related to his architecture firm. Dressed up and without children for the first time in our acquaintance, we found ourselves suddenly shy around each other. "Is this weird?" I asked as we sat at our assigned table, surrounded by his colleagues, being out like real adults. "Completely weird," he agreed with a laugh. "I keep expecting Max to interrupt us or spill something." That evening marked a turning point. We talked about everything except our children for once. Our backgrounds, our interests, our dreams before and after parenthood had reshaped our lives. By the time he walked me to my door, something had definitely shifted between us. "I'd like to do this again," he said. "Maybe without my entire office watching." "I'd like that too," I replied, meaning it more than I'd expected to. Our relationship progressed slowly after that, both of us cautious about introducing romantic complications into our children's lives. We continued our family outings, but added occasional dinner dates when childcare allowed, getting to know each other as individuals rather than just fellow parents. Ryan was the first person I told about my decision to pursue adoption. His support was immediate and unequivocal. "Lily is your daughter in every way that matters," he said simply. "The law should reflect that reality." His certainty strengthened my resolve as I finalized the letter to Emma, requesting adoption consent. Jennifer helped me frame it in the most positive light possible, emphasizing that adoption wouldn't cut Emma out of Lily's life, but would provide the legal security Lily needed. I mailed the letter along with recent photos of Lily and a short video of her playing in the snow, hoping the personal touches might remind Emma of what was truly at stake: her daughter's well-being, not her own pride or theoretical future plans. Then came the waiting. Days passed with no response, stretching into weeks. I tried calling but got voicemail every time. I messaged my parents asking if they'd heard from Emma, but they were evasive, saying only that she was going through some things and would respond when ready. Just as I was considering more drastic measures to locate my sister, a certified letter arrived from London. Inside was a stack of signed adoption consent forms and a brief handwritten note. "You've been her mother all along. Make it official. Love, Emma." I sat on the floor of my entryway, paperwork scattered around me, crying with relief and a strange, unexpected grief. Despite all my frustration with Emma, despite knowing this was best for Lily, finalizing the severance of their legal relationship felt momentous and sad. Ryan found me there when he arrived to pick me up for dinner, still clutching the consent forms. Without a word, he sat beside me on the floor and put his arm around my shoulders, letting me process the complicated emotions of the moment. "She signed," I finally said. "Lily can be mine legally." "She already is yours," he reminded me gently. "This just makes it official." That night, as I tucked Lily into bed, this child who had arrived so unexpectedly at my door and completely transformed my life, I made her a promise. "I will always be here for you, no matter what. Forever and always, my sweet girl." She looked up at me with complete trust and said, "Love you, Mommy," before her eyelids drooped closed. In that moment, everything felt right. We had our home, our routines, our chosen family in Ryan and Max, and soon, the legal recognition of the mother-daughter bond we'd built day by day for nearly 2 years. I had no way of knowing that the peace I felt that night was about to be shattered by an unexpected phone call that would threaten everything we'd built. The adoption process began smoothly, with Emma's signed consent forms. Jennifer filed the paperwork promptly, and we were assigned a court date for 3 months later. The social worker assigned to our case, Marisa Johnson, conducted the required home study, observing Lily and me together, interviewing me about my parenting philosophy and resources, and inspecting our living situation. "You've created a wonderful environment for her," Marisa commented during her final visit. "It's clear she's thriving in your care." Meanwhile, my relationship with Ryan continued to develop. We spent most weekends together with the children, alternating between his house and my apartment. Max and Lily had become inseparable friends, with Max protectively declaring Lily my sister to other children at the playground, despite our gentle corrections that they weren't actually siblings. "Not yet," Ryan had murmured to me once, quietly enough that the children couldn't hear. The comment hung between us, neither of us quite ready to discuss what it might mean, but both acknowledging the direction we were heading. For the first time since Lily had arrived in my life, I felt like we were building something sustainable and joyful. Work had stabilized as well. I'd established a reputation in the children's educational materials niche, and was even developing my own picture book with a small publisher. The project allowed me to work during Lily's daycare hours and incorporate her input into the story about a little girl and her magical stuffed bunny. Then came the phone call that upended everything. It was a Tuesday evening in April. Lily was already asleep, and I was finalizing illustrations at my desk when my phone rang with my mother's number. "Madeline, wonderful news," my mother exclaimed without preamble. "We're moving back to Boston." I sat in stunned silence for a moment. "You're... what? When?" "Next month. Your father's Barcelona venture didn't work out as planned, but he's been offered a position with his old firm. They're eager to have him back. Isn't it wonderful? We'll be able to see Lily regularly again." Her casual mention of Lily, as if she'd been an active grandparent temporarily away on business rather than absent for nearly 2 years, ignited a slow burn of anger in my chest. "That's unexpected," I managed. "Where will you be living?" "Well, that's another thing I wanted to discuss," she said, her voice taking on the wheedling tone I recognized from childhood when she wanted a favor. "The housing market is quite different now, and we'll need some time to find the right place. We were hoping we could stay with you for a bit while we get settled." The audacity of the request left me momentarily speechless. These people who had abandoned me with a baby without warning now expected me to welcome them into my home. "That won't be possible, Mom," I said finally. "My apartment barely has enough room for Lily and me. There's no space for house guests, especially not for an indefinite stay." "But we're family, Madeline," she protested, "and we want to spend time with our granddaughter." "You mean the granddaughter you haven't seen in person for almost 2 years? The one whose birthday parties you missed? The one I've been raising completely on my own while you enjoyed Spain?" My mother's voice turned cold. "I see you've become quite possessive of Emma's child." "Lily is not just Emma's child anymore," I shot back. "Emma signed adoption consent forms. I'm in the process of legally becoming Lily's mother." The silence on the other end of the line was deafening. "Emma did what?" my mother finally asked, her voice dangerously quiet. She acknowledged the reality of the situation. "She knows I've been Lily's mother in every meaningful way since she dropped her on my doorstep. She's allowing me to make it official." "We'll discuss this when we return," my mother said stiffly. Emma clearly wasn't thinking clearly. "Your father and I will help sort this out." Before I could respond, she'd ended the call. I sat staring at my phone, a knot of dread forming in my stomach. Something in her tone suggested this wasn't merely a surprised reaction, but the beginning of a battle. My suspicions were confirmed the following week when I received a call from Emma, the first direct contact we'd had since she'd sent the consent forms. "Mom and Dad are freaking out," she said without greeting. "They've been calling me non-stop since they found out about the adoption papers." "What did you tell them?" I asked, trying to keep my voice neutral. "The truth that I signed them because it seemed like the right thing to do for Lily." Her voice was defensive. "But they're saying I made a huge mistake, that I wasn't thinking straight, that I let you manipulate me." "Emma, you know that's not what happened. You made the decision yourself." "I know, but..." she hesitated. "They're saying they'll help me get her back, that they'll move back to Boston and support us, and I can be a real mother to her." The room seemed to tilt around me. "Get her back? Emma, Lily doesn't know you. You've been gone her entire life. You can't just decide to be her mother now because Mom and Dad suddenly want to play house." "She's still my daughter," Emma said, but her voice lacked conviction. "Biologically, yes. But in every other way, I'm her mother. I'm the one who's been there for every fever, every nightmare, every skinned knee. I'm the one she calls Mommy." The conversation ended uneasily, with Emma promising to think things through before making any decisions. But the damage was done. I immediately called Jennifer to alert her to the potential challenge to the adoption proceedings. Document everything, she advised grimly. Every communication with your sister and parents, every aspect of your care for Lily. If they're planning to contest the adoption, we need to be prepared. 2 weeks later, my parents arrived in Boston. Rather than staying in a hotel, as I'd suggested, they'd rented a furnished apartment just 3 blocks from mine, a move clearly designed to establish proximity to Lily. They requested a dinner meeting to discuss the situation like adults. Against my better judgment, I agreed, asking Ryan to watch Lily for the evening. He offered to come with me for moral support, but I felt this was a confrontation I needed to handle alone. The restaurant they'd chosen was upscale and public, likely their strategy to prevent any heated exchanges. My father looked older than I'd expected, the Barcelona venture clearly having taken a toll. My mother, however, appeared refreshed and determined, her smile not reaching her eyes as she kissed my cheek in greeting. "You look well, Madeline," she said, assessing me as we sat down. "I am well," I replied. "Lily and I both are." "About that," my father interjected, folding his hands on the table. "We need to discuss this adoption nonsense." "It's not nonsense," I said evenly. "It's the legal recognition of the reality we've all been living for nearly 2 years." "The reality," my mother countered, "is that you've taken advantage of a difficult situation. Emma was vulnerable and confused when she left Lily with you, and now you've manipulated her into signing away her rights to her own child." The accusation stung despite its absurdity. I didn't manipulate anyone. Emma abandoned her baby on my doorstep and disappeared to London. I've raised Lily single-handedly while all of you went on with your lives as if she didn't exist. "That's unfair," my father protested. "We had a business opportunity we couldn't pass up, and Emma needed to be with Jake during a critical time for his career." "And what about what Lily needed?" I asked, my voice rising despite my efforts to remain calm. "She needed parents who would put her first, not treat her like an inconvenient piece of luggage to be stored until more convenient times. We're here now," my mother said firmly, "and we're prepared to support Emma in reclaiming her daughter. We've already found a lovely 3-bedroom apartment where they can live, while Emma gets established again in Boston. Your father will be working again, and I'll be available to help with childcare." The casual way they outlined this plan, as if Lily were a possession to be reclaimed, rather than a human being with attachments and needs, left me breathless with anger. "And what about Lily's stability? Her attachment to me? The trauma of being separated from the only parent she's ever known? Does any of that matter to you?" "Children are resilient," my mother said dismissively. "She'll adjust. She is not an experiment in resilience." I slammed my hand on the table, causing nearby diners to glance our way. Lowering my voice, I continued. "She is a little girl who has finally found security and stability after being abandoned by her biological mother and grandparents. I will not let you disrupt her life again for your convenience." "It's not about convenience," my father argued. "It's about family. Blood family." "Family isn't just blood," I countered. "It's showing up. It's being there day after day, through illness and tantrums and milestones. Where were any of you for those things?" The conversation devolved from there, with my parents alternating between guilt-tripping me about stealing Emma's child and offering compromises that all involved Lily being transferred to Emma's care, while I stepped back into the role of aunt. By the time dessert arrived, which none of us touched, I had learned several devastating truths. My parents had been sending Emma money throughout the past 2 years, but had offered none to me for Lily's care. They had actively encouraged Emma to leave Lily with me, as a temporary measure, while knowing it would likely be extended indefinitely. And most shocking of all, they expected to move into my apartment temporarily while their rental was being renovated. "That's absolutely not happening," I said definitively when they broached the housing issue again. "You are not moving in with us. You are not disrupting Lily's life. And I am proceeding with the adoption." "Then you leave us no choice," my father said coldly. "We'll support Emma in challenging the adoption and filing for custody." "On what grounds?" I asked, genuinely curious what argument they thought would succeed. "Coercion for one," my mother replied. Emma was in a vulnerable state when she signed those papers, and abandonment isn't permanent. Parents can and do reclaim their children after temporary separations. I stood up, throwing my napkin on the table. This isn't about Lily's well-being at all, is it? This is about your failed Barcelona venture and needing a do-over. You want to pretend the last 2 years never happened so you can play happy family again. My father's face reddened. That's uncalled for, Madeline. No. What's uncalled for is treating a child like a possession to be passed around when convenient. Lily stays with me. I'm her mother in every way that matters, and I'll fight with everything I have to protect her. I walked out of the restaurant with my head high, but once in my car, I broke down completely, sobbing against the steering wheel. The family I thought I knew, the parents I'd respected despite their flaws, were willing to traumatize a toddler to save face and reclaim control. When I finally made it home, Ryan took one look at my face and opened his arms. I collapsed against him, the whole story pouring out between sobs. Lily was already asleep in my bedroom, Max dozing on the couch amid a pile of picture books. They can't win this, Ryan said firmly when I'd finished. No judge would remove a child from a stable home with the only parent she's known to place her with a biological mother who's been completely absent. But they have money for lawyers, I said. And they're spinning this narrative that I manipulated Emma and stole Lily. Then we fight, he said simply. Because Lily deserves better than to be a pawn in their game. That night, watching Lily sleep peacefully in her bed, I made a silent promise. No matter what it took, I would protect her from the chaos my family seemed determined to create. The battle lines were drawn, and for the first time in my life, I was prepared to stand against my family completely, because now I had a daughter to fight for. This fight for Lily became the hardest thing I've ever faced. If my story has helped you feel less alone in your own family struggles, I'd be so grateful if you'd hit the like button and share this video with someone who might need to hear it. In the next part, I'll tell you about the battle that followed and the unexpected ally I found in this fight. Thank you for being here with me through this journey. The legal battle began with unexpected swiftness. Just 3 days after our disastrous dinner, I received notice that Emma had filed a motion to revoke her consent to the adoption, claiming she had been under duress when signing the papers. My parents had hired Preston Lawford, one of Boston's most expensive and aggressive family attorneys, to represent her. I called Jennifer immediately, my hands shaking as I held the legal papers. "They're really doing this," I said, my voice breaking. "They're trying to take her." "We anticipated this," Jennifer replied calmly. "Remember, the law generally favors biological parents, but there are strong exceptions for psychological parents and the best interests of the child. Lily has been in your exclusive care for nearly 2 years. That matters significantly." What followed was the most grueling, exhausting period of my life. The court appointed a guardian ad litem, an attorney named Marcus Chen, who would independently investigate and make recommendations solely based on Lily's best interests. This meant home visits, interviews with everyone in Lily's life, and evaluations of both my home and the apartment my parents had secured for Emma. Emma herself returned to Boston within a week of filing the motion, moving into the apartment our parents had arranged. She arrived with a new look, her wild London style replaced by conservative clothing and a more traditional hairstyle. The transformation was clearly designed to present her as a responsible, stable mother figure to the court. Our first court-ordered meetup was excruciating. Lily, now almost 2.5, had no recognition of her biological mother and clung to me tearfully when Emma tried to approach her. The supervised visitation coordinator noted Emma's awkwardness and Lily's distress in her report. "She doesn't even know me," Emma said afterward, her voice small and hurt. "What did you expect, Emma?" I asked, trying to keep accusation from my tone. "You've been gone her entire life." "I didn't think it would be like this," she admitted. "Mom and Dad said she'd remember me at some level, that we'd have a bond." For a moment, I saw a glimpse of the sister I'd once known, uncertain and looking for guidance rather than the defensive woman who'd been avoiding my calls. But the moment passed quickly when my mother arrived to pick her up, shooting me a cold glare before ushering Emma away. The legal proceedings took on a life of their own. Motions and countermotions, evaluations and assessments. expert testimony on attachment and child development. Through it all, I maintained Lily's routine as best I could, shielding her from the stress and tension as much as possible. Ryan became my rock during this period. He accompanied me to court when possible, watched Lily when I had meetings with Jennifer, and provided a listening ear when I needed to vent my frustration and fear. Max, now almost 4, became protective of Lily, announcing to anyone who would listen that she was his best friend forever. The financial strain became nearly unbearable. Legal fees mounted rapidly, and I was forced to take on additional projects despite the emotional toll of the custody battle. Sleep became a luxury I rarely enjoyed, working late into the night after Lily was in bed and rising early to prepare for court appearances or meetings. Through the legal discovery process, more family secrets emerged. Financial records revealed my parents had been sending Emma a monthly stipend since she'd left for London, money that could have helped support Lily, but was never offered to me. Text messages between my mother and Emma showed my mother had actively discouraged Emma from video calling Lily during the first year, suggesting it would only confuse everyone and that a clean break would be easier until they were settled. Most damning of all, emails between my parents revealed their true motivation for the sudden interest in reclaiming Lily. My father's Barcelona venture had failed spectacularly, leaving them with significant debt. Emma had received a substantial settlement from Jake's record label after a contractual dispute, and she had promised to help our parents financially if they assisted her in regaining custody of Lily. When Jennifer presented these findings to me, I felt physically ill. "They're treating her like a financial asset," I whispered. "A bargaining chip." "This will work in our favor," Jennifer assured me. "Judges don't look kindly on custody claims motivated by financial gain rather than the child's well-being." Meanwhile, Emma's court-ordered visitations with Lily continued with minimal improvement. She brought expensive toys that were inappropriate for Lily's age and seemed at a loss when faced with typical toddler behaviors. During one supervised visit, she admitted to the coordinator that she didn't really know what to do with kids and seemed relieved when the session ended early due to Lily's distress. My parents, however, presented a united front of righteous indignation in court, portraying themselves as concerned grandparents only interested in reuniting a mother and child who had been wrongfully separated. My mother wept convincingly about missing milestones in her granddaughter's life, never acknowledging that their absence had been entirely voluntary. The breaking point came when Emma, apparently acting on my parents' advice, attempted to remove Lily from her daycare without authorization. The center's director, recognizing that Emma wasn't on the approved pickup list and noting Lily's obvious distress, contacted me immediately and then called the police when Emma refused to leave without Lily. By the time I arrived, Emma was sitting in the director's office with a police officer, while Lily was being comforted by her teacher in another room. Emma looked simultaneously defiant and terrified. "What were you thinking?" I asked her once the officer had stepped out to take a call. "Mom said it would be easier if I just took her," Emma admitted, not meeting my eyes. "That once we had her home with us, the court would favor keeping her with her biological mother." "That's parental kidnapping, Emma. You could have been arrested." "I didn't know what else to do," she burst out. "They keep saying I need to prove I'm serious about being a mother, but Lily hates me. She screams every time I come near her. This isn't working, and they won't listen when I try to tell them." For the first time, I felt a flicker of sympathy for my sister. She, too, was being manipulated by our parents, pushed into a role she wasn't prepared for and might not even truly want. "What do you actually want, Emma?" I asked quietly. "Not what Mom and Dad want. What do you want?" She stared at her hands for a long moment before answering. "I want to know my daughter, but I don't think I'm ready to be her full-time mom. I'm not like you, Maddie. I don't know how to do this." That moment of honesty changed everything. After the daycare incident, Jennifer filed for an emergency restraining order, preventing Emma from approaching Lily outside of court-supervised visitation. The judge granted it immediately and ordered a full psychological evaluation of Emma. During her evaluation, Emma finally broke away from the script our parents had given her. She admitted to the psychologist that she had freely signed the adoption papers, that she recognized I had been Lily's primary attachment figure since infancy, and that her sudden return had been heavily influenced by our parents' promises of financial support and housing. The psychologist's report was unequivocal. Forcing Lily to leave the only home and parent she knew would likely cause significant psychological harm. Furthermore, Emma's own psychological assessment revealed she was still struggling with substance abuse issues that she had hidden from our parents and the court. Following this revelation, Marcus Chen, the guardian ad litem, filed his recommendation strongly supporting my adoption of Lily and suggesting that any relationship with Emma should be carefully structured and supervised until stability could be established. The day we returned to court with these new findings, the atmosphere had shifted dramatically. My parents sat stiffly in the gallery, while Emma looked pale but somehow more present than she had in previous hearings. Their attorney appeared grim as he conferred with them in whispers. When Emma was called to testify, she did something none of us expected. She told the truth. "I wasn't ready to be a mother when Lily was born," she stated clearly. "I'm still not ready. My sister has been her mother in every way that matters, and Lily loves her. Taking her away would be cruel." My mother gasped audibly from the gallery, but Emma continued. "I signed those adoption papers willingly because I knew it was best for Lily. Then my parents convinced me I was making a mistake, that I would regret giving up my daughter. They promised to support me financially and help with childcare if I fought for custody. But seeing how terrified Lily is around me, how she clings to Madeline, I can't do this to her. I withdraw my objection to the adoption." The courtroom erupted in murmurs. The judge called for order while my parents conferred frantically with their attorney. I sat in stunned silence, tears streaming down my face as the realization dawned that the fight might actually be over. Emma continued, looking directly at me now. "I do want to be part of Lily's life, but as her aunt, not by traumatizing her with a custody battle. I asked the court to allow the adoption to proceed and to consider a visitation schedule that will allow Lily to get to know me gradually at a pace that doesn't distress her." After Emma's testimony, my parents' attorney requested a recess to confer with his clients. When court resumed, he announced that my parents were withdrawing their support of Emma's custody petition, essentially ending their involvement in the case. Outside the courtroom, I found Emma sitting alone on a bench, our parents nowhere in sight. "They're furious," she said flatly when I sat beside her. "They've cut me off financially and said I betrayed the family." "I'm sorry," I said, and meant it. Despite everything, she was still my sister, and I recognized the courage it had taken to stand up to our parents. "Don't be. It's actually kind of a relief." She offered a small, sad smile. "I've been living my life according to their expectations forever. Maybe it's time I figured out who I am without them pulling the strings." "What will you do now?" I asked. "Go back to London, probably. I have friends there, and some music industry contacts. But I meant what I said in there. I do want to know Lily. Just the right way, when she's ready." "I think that can be arranged," I said cautiously. "We can start with video calls, maybe. Let her get comfortable with you gradually." Emma nodded, wiping away a tear. "Thank you. For taking care of her when I couldn't. For loving her enough to fight for her. She's lucky to have you." It was the closest thing to an apology and acknowledgement I was likely to get. But somehow, it was enough. The final adoption hearing was scheduled for the following month. My parents did not attend. Emma came, sitting quietly at the back of the courtroom, as the judge officially declared me Lily's legal mother and approved a schedule of supervised visitation for Emma as Aunt Emma. As we left the courthouse, Lily perched on my hip and babbling happily about the promise of ice cream, Ryan and Max waiting for us on the steps, I felt the weight of the past years finally lifting. The battle had been brutal, exposing the dysfunction at the heart of my biological family, but it had also revealed the strength of the family Lily and I had created together. The day of Lily's official adoption ceremony remains the most joyful day of my life. The family court judge, who had overseen our case, a grandmother herself with kind eyes and a no-nonsense manner, made the occasion special for Lily by allowing her to bang the gavel after declaring the adoption final. Lily, dressed in a frilly blue dress she had insisted on wearing, giggled delightedly as the sound echoed through the courtroom. "Congratulations, Miss Mitchell," the judge said warmly. "Legally and officially, you are now mother and daughter." Though those words merely confirmed what had been true in our hearts for years, hearing them pronounced in that formal setting brought tears to my eyes. Ryan stood beside me, his hand steady on my shoulder, while Max proudly held a bouquet of flowers he had helped select for the occasion. Sarah and other friends from our support network filled the gallery, their presence a testament to the family we had chosen rather than the one we were born into. Emma attended the ceremony, sitting somewhat awkwardly among my friends, but making a genuine effort to be supportive. My parents, predictably, declined the invitation. Their anger at what they perceived as Emma's betrayal and my stealing of their granddaughter had hardened into cold silence. They had moved into a smaller apartment across town and made no attempt to contact us following the court's decision. In the weeks that followed the adoption, our lives settled into a new rhythm. Emma began the supervised visitation schedule, coming once a week to spend time with Lily under the guidance of a family therapist who specialized in building relationships between children and estranged biological parents. Initially, Lily was wary, clinging to me and regarding Emma with suspicious glances. But gradually, with patience and consistency, she began to warm up to the woman we now called Aunt Emma. "She has your smile," Emma observed during one visit, watching Lily arrange blocks into a tower with fierce concentration. "But your artistic ability," I replied, noting the intricate pattern Lily was creating. "She's got the best of both of us." These moments of connection, of recognizing our shared investment in Lily's well-being, despite our difficult history, began to heal the rift between my sister and me. Emma, free from our parents' manipulation and expectations, seemed to be finding her own path at last. She decided to stay in Boston rather than returning to London, enrolling in community college classes and working at a local music venue. Her sobriety, a condition of her visitation rights, appeared to be giving her a clarity she'd lacked before. My parents' re-entry into our lives came more gradually and with considerably more friction. 3 months after the adoption was finalized, my mother called unexpectedly. "I'd like to see Lily," she said without preamble when I answered. "Hello to you too, Mom," I replied, my guard immediately up. "Why the sudden interest?" "She's still my granddaughter," she said stiffly, regardless of the legal situation. After consulting with Jennifer and Lily's therapist, I agreed to a supervised visit at a neutral location, a children's museum, where Lily would be comfortable and distracted by activities. My mother arrived alone, my father apparently still unwilling to acknowledge the new reality. The visit was tense but civil. My mother brought an age-appropriate gift, evidence she'd done some research this time, and made an effort to engage with Lily on her terms rather than forcing affection. When Lily referred to me as Mommy, my mother flinched visibly but made no comment. As we were preparing to leave, my mother pulled me aside. "Your father and I made mistakes," she said, the closest thing to an apology I'd ever heard from her. "We thought we were doing what was best for Emma." "And Lily?" I asked. "Did you ever consider what was best for her?" My mother looked away. "We thought family meant blood. We didn't understand this." She gestured vaguely to encompass Lily, who was putting on her coat with the independence of a typical 3-year-old, insisting I do it myself. "Family is who shows up," I said, echoing Ryan's words from long ago. "It's who stays, who puts in the work, who makes the hard choices." She nodded slowly. "I'd like to try to be that kind of family now, if you'll let us." It wasn't an overnight transformation. My parents' journey toward acceptance came in fits and starts. My father remained distant for several more months before finally agreeing to meet Lily again. But gradually, they began to earn limited, supervised time with their granddaughter, always with clear boundaries and expectations. Our family therapy sessions became a regular feature of life, with various combinations of participants depending on the issues being addressed. Sometimes it was just Emma and me, working through our complicated history and forging a new sister relationship. Other times it included my parents, painstakingly establishing healthier communication patterns and realistic expectations. Through it all, my relationship with Ryan deepened and strengthened. He had seen me at my most vulnerable during the custody battle, had witnessed the dysfunction of my biological family, and had stood firmly beside me nonetheless. Max and Lily had become inseparable friends, creating their own sibling-like bond despite the absence of biological connection. On Lily's third birthday, as we celebrated with a small party in our apartment, Emma helping with decorations, my parents awkwardly but sincerely participating, Ryan pulled me aside to the kitchen. I was going to wait until later, he said, suddenly nervous in a way I rarely saw him. But seeing everyone here, seeing what you've built for Lily despite everything, I can't wait anymore. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. Madeline Mitchell, you are the strongest, most loving person I've ever known. Would you consider making our family official? Will you marry me? The ring was simple and perfect, a sapphire instead of a diamond, my favorite color. But more meaningful than the ring was the thought behind it. Ryan wasn't just asking to marry me, he was asking to join our families, to make permanent the bond that had grown between Max and Lily, between him and me. Yes, I said without hesitation. Absolutely yes. We announced the engagement at the birthday party, to cheers from our friends, and cautious congratulations from my parents. Emma hugged me tightly, whispering, "You deserve this happiness, Maddie. All of it." As the evening wound down and guests departed, I found myself on the balcony of our apartment, watching the sunset over Boston. Ryan joined me, slipping his arm around my waist. "Penny for your thoughts?" he asked. "I was just thinking about that morning when Emma showed up at my door," I said. "How terrified I was, how angry at being abandoned with a baby. I had no idea that moment, that seemed like the worst thing that could happen, would lead to this." I gestured inside, where Lily and Max were building a fort out of birthday gift boxes, their laughter floating through the open door. "Life rarely goes as planned," Ryan observed. "Sometimes that's a blessing in disguise." "I never planned to be a mother this way," I agreed. "But I can't imagine my life without Lily now. She made me stronger, braver than I knew I could be." "You were always strong," he corrected gently. "Lily just gave you a reason to show it." Looking back on the journey from that fateful doorbell ring to this moment of contentment and hope, I realized how completely my definition of family had transformed. Family wasn't the people who shared your DNA. It was the people who showed up day after day, who put your well-being above their own convenience, who loved you steadily through chaos and calm. Lily would grow up knowing her biological mother as a loving aunt, knowing her biological grandparents within the boundaries we'd established. But more importantly, she would grow up absolutely certain of who her true parents were, the ones who had fought for her, who had built their lives around her needs, who had chosen her every single day. As we stood watching the sunset, planning our future together, I felt a profound gratitude for the unexpected twists and turns that had brought us to this point. What had begun as abandonment had transformed into the greatest gift of my life, the daughter of my heart and the family we had created together. If my story has resonated with you, I hope it's offered some comfort if you're navigating complicated family dynamics or unexpected responsibilities. Family isn't always what we expect, but sometimes it's exactly what we need. If you've stayed with me through this entire journey, thank you from the bottom of my heart. Please consider hitting that like button and subscribing if you haven't already. Share this video with someone who might need to hear that family is about choices, not just blood. And I'd love to hear in the comments about your own unexpected family journeys and the lessons they've taught you. Remember, sometimes the most beautiful families are the ones we build ourselves. One choice, one day, one act of love at a time.